Two Worlds, One Family by Dragon Translator, Chapter 40. What are we going to do? They searched until the sun hit its highest point. Hiccup held up his hand, spinning his arm in a tight circle. The riders circled around him. He pointed to a large sea stack that would fit them all. The dragons landed. I'm sorry, Heather said. I'm not really sure where the attack happened. Hiccup sighed. He glanced up at the sky, then looked at Gyda. He flicked his gaze towards Burke. Behind Heather, Gyda tipped her head once more. Gyda will take you back to Flammer's farm, he told Heather. She's agreed to let you stay with her until we find your parents. Oh, Heather said, sounding surprised. She jerked and then looked around at the others. Thank you all for looking for them. She focused back onto Hiccup, and over her shoulder, to the right of Shadowfire, Hiccup saw Astrid's eyes narrow when Heather spoke again. In a voice that sounded odd and wrong to Hiccup. Thank you, Hiccup, for letting me stay. You can stay forever if you want, Snotlout said, subtly flexing his arms that he held Hookfang's horns. Hiccup watched as Heather stared at him with a dumbfounded expression. But it was Astrid, whose position kept her out of Snotlout's line of sight as well, that had Hiccup fighting to keep a grin off his face. Astrid placed a hand over her mouth, bowed her shoulders, and held her other arm across her stomach. Snort, Hiccup said, in an attempt not to laugh with his intended. It would invite questions he would not answer. Would you mind escorting them back? Sure, I'll keep 'em safe, Hiccup. Besides, my belly's growling, and when mine does, Hookie's does too. That's how attuned we are. Hookfang grumbled something that had the other dragons laughing. Heather looked around, slightly fearful. Gyda merely tapped the side of Shadowfire's neck. The bigger dragon bowed to Hiccup before slipping off the edge of the sea stack. Hookfang lowered his head, careful not to unseat his rider, flared his wings, and joined Shadowfire as the dragon rose into view. Both dragons banked west and headed for Burke. Hiccup blinked as Ruff slid her own hand down the side of Barth's cheek. The head lowered. Ruff hopped off. Hiccup watched her, slightly worried, as she walked across to stand at the left side of Toothless's neck. She then stared up at him for a couple of heartbeats, then reached up and patted his shoulder. You did good, boss man, she said before returning to Barth and climbing into the saddle once more. She looked at her brother. Wanna get some yak chops before Wolfnut gets them? Hiccup watched as Tuff's face hardened. He'd better not, Tuff said. Come on, Belch, there are leftover yak chops on the line. Barth and Belch looked at Hiccup. He, not quite sure what was happening, only nodded. The heads gave a short bow, neither wishing to unseat their riders. The dragon took off and banked towards the village. Hiccup turned to Fishlegs, finding the quiet Viking staring in the direction of Burke, a pensive look upon his face. Do you think this is a trap, Hiccup? Fishlegs asked. Why'd you ask that? Hiccup asked. You had her riding with Gyda, Fishlegs said. If she tried anything, Gyda would have zapped her with lightning before we could blink. The teen looked out towards the east. And I haven't failed to notice that way leads to Outcast Island. Fishlegs turned back to Hiccup. I didn't forget that Gyda said Alvin wanted you to train dragons for him. Your father's taken in other crashed Vikings before. What better way to get you to him than to send someone in like this? Hiccup heard Stormfly walk closer and looked over his right shoulder. Astrid stared down at him. Her hands gripped the handles he installed in Stormfly's saddle, the same day he put ones on Shadowfire and Meatlug's sandals. Hookfang and Barth and Belch had horns their riders could hold on to, should they not need any handles. Just tether hooks. Stormfly's crown of horns extended away from Astrid. Shadowfire's long neck and Gyda's placement of his saddle, between the wing joints, gave her only small spikes to hold on to. Meatlug had only had her ears, and while she was okay with her rider holding them, Hiccup was not. The handles and tether hooks also gave him peace of mind, when Astrid and Stormfly joined him and Toothless in some of their aerial acrobatics, as Gyda called the stunts they performed. Now they seemed to keep Astrid grounded. Somewhat. At least she was not directing Stormfly to rush to Outcast Island and have words with Alvin at the edge of her axe. Hiccup suspected a reason she did not was because she knew he would follow her, and Astrid would not endanger him. Even before Gyda returned and Astrid accepted his courtship, The fierce teen had done what she could to keep Hiccup safe. She remained the only friend he had, at the time, to glare at his father before their memories were restored. Stoic had harshly demanded Hiccup to do something about the wild dragons after a particularly nasty day, and Astrid had overheard him. Her glare directed to the chief was something Hiccup would hold close forever. "Hiccup," Fishleg said softly. Hiccup lowered his gaze to Toothless's back, his cheeks warming. Toothless tilted his head. Hiccup caught Toothless's eye, and from the glint in his dragon brother's green gaze, he knew he was in for it later. Toothless and Sharpshot loved to tease him over his relationship with Astrid. Stormfly would join in whenever she was with them. None of the dragons were vicious or cruel, and all confined their teasing to points Hiccup was not actively leading or directing humans or dragons. They would do nothing to disrespect Hiccup or his authority in view of most of the nest. Or so they vehemently declared one day not long after Gita returned. Hiccup looked up to where he was sure he was not blushing. He hoped Fishlegs would interrupt it, as not speaking his thoughts were organised. He did not want his friend to know he was slightly embarrassed at being called out while staring at Astrid, instead of answering Fishlegs' concerns. Fishlegs did not seem annoyed. The teen looked worried, and his gaze flickered from the west to Berg to the east in the direction of Outcast Island. "What are we going to do, Hiccup?" Fishlegs asked in a small whisper. End of chapter. Hi guys, hope you enjoyed that one. Again, Ruff being MVP, she sees what's going on. I think girls are taught to do something which is called relational aggression, which is using their relationships to other people against each other, particularly when it comes to men. And I think Ruff is reading what Heather's subtly trying to do, and she's saying really girl? And the fact that she is with Hiccup and saying, "You did good, boss man." I love that. Because it shows the twins aren't just comic relief. They are hilarious, and sometimes when I need a laugh I watch compilations of them being silly. But at the same time, it's good to know they're actual characters, not just the laughy ones. Anyway, you guys know the drill. Like, comment and subscribe, and hit that bell to get notified whenever I upload a new video. Have a good day, night, or whatever time zone you're in. Bye my guys, gals, and non-binary pals. I'll see you in another video. Take care.